Okay, forgot to press the record button before the last set of squats. So there's no form check, only news. Addy Robertson, The Verge. Tim Cook unveils Apple Vision Pro, a quote unquote spatial computing headset controlled with the user's eyes, hands, and voice, coming to the United States for $3,499 and up in early 2024. Related, Matthew Panzarino, TechCrunch, hands-on with Apple Vision Pro, which seems to be a genuine leapfrog in capability and execution of mixed reality, offering near perfect eye tracking and gesture control. Also related, Ben Thompson, Stratechery, Apple Vision Pro is incredibly compelling as a product and for its potential use cases. What the device says about society, though, is a bit more pessimistic. Also related, Mark Gurman, Bloomberg, Apple Vision Pro will take at least 5 years to supplant the iPhone, reflected by Tim Cook not wearing one. The spatial computing user interface is what's most impressive. Also related, Todd Spangler, Variety, Apple Vision Pro will launch with Disney Plus and hundreds of thousands of existing iPhone and iPad apps, including Word and Excel, and support the Unity game engine. Finally, also related, Roman Delay, TechCrunch, Apple Vision Pro specs, 12 cameras, 5 sensors, and 6 microphones, an M2 and a new R1 chip, a digital crown, 23 million pixels, and Zeiss lenses for vision correction. This was an appropriate use of the phrase, one more thing. Uh, Apple are the best product showcase culture. That's a terrible sentence. Uh, no one does a better job of the showmanship of putting a new product out into the world, explaining what it's capable of, why you should care, and what it took to get there than them. There are plenty of other companies who have been emulating them over the years, and there are a plethora of exceptional product announcements from Samsung and Microsoft, and pick your uh, modern consumer electronics business. But this is why Apple is Apple, because they manage to show what is on its face, pun partially intended, um, as Thompson points out, a quite pessimistic uh, device to get added to the cultural ecosystem or the societal ecosystem that is people who can afford to spend thousands of dollars on personal electronics. It renders your eyes on the face of the device as a way to signal to people around you that you are in fact seeing what is beyond the goggles, in addition to uh, a whole host of other capabilities. It's not worth going into. What I think is interesting is this question of how long does it take to supplant the iPhone? This device obviously is not going to supplant a slab of glass, roughly the size of a deck of cards or a pack of cigarettes, that you can carry with you anywhere with a battery that lasts for more than 24 hours and that does damn near everything under the sun. That said, what does this device look like in 5 years? That's the fundamental question. Can they get from what Vision Pro is today? And I think putting Vision and Pro, if you want to get into the Kremlinology, is interesting here. I would place an early bet that the next product in the category is either an upgrade of this one, a more powerful Pro device, or a Vision device, the way Apple Watch is just called Apple Watch, which has less capability, but in exchange for that, a sort of significantly better wearability, shall we say. So that's going to happen within 5 years. I'd be shocked if it doesn't. So between now and 5 years from now, what does the adoption of this thing look like? And what does the developer community do to embrace it? And what does society at large do in terms of response? One of the first things that popped into my mind as I was watching the presentation before I went to bed last night is within 12 months, within 24 months, there's the photograph of a university lecture auditorium that's infamous now amongst people that follow Apple, at least, for the field of Apple laptops and little Apple logos, many of them glowing at the time the photo was taken, because we used to be cool like that. I'm anticipating the photograph taken from the center aisle of an airplane at night with the field of eyes and other colorful illustrations glowing on people's faces. Again, sort of a take on the image of Zuckerberg walking through the auditorium with people wearing Oculus headsets. That is the thing that will be wrestled with over certainly the next year, the next 5 years. You know, the product 5 years from now, let's wave a magic wand and say that it effectively looks like some strange marriage of a vintage pair of like Oakley Blade sunglasses and Apple design aesthetic. People wear that around in the world. How are we going to feel knowing that there are multiple cameras pointed out from those glasses, as well as all manner of things occupying the wearer's attention above and beyond you walking toward them on the sidewalk? It'll be fascinating to see how we reckon with those things. Last thought, I kind of want to go buy some of those Meta Wayfarer glasses just to see what it's like to walk around with the ability to photograph whatever's in your field of vision. Might be funny. Austin Weinstein, Bloomberg. The SEC sues Coinbase, alleging the exchange operated as an unregistered broker since at least 2019 and broke the rules by offering, quote, staking. Coin drops more than 15%. Related, Ziwan's son, Cointelegraph. A task force of 10 state regulators, including California and Washington's, issues a show cause order against Coinbase for allegedly violating securities law. Crypto malarkey, maybe, but maybe also crisis of authority. Hard to say which bucket this falls into. I suppose we'll find out the extent to which Coinbase was in violation of SEC regulations. But then again, Coinbase has been very publicly requesting that the SEC clarify its regulatory position so that they can operate their business. So this one will be one to watch, if for no other reason than hopefully it sets some precedent. Alex Conrad, Forbes. Sequoia plans to split into 3 firms: Sequoia in the United States and Europe, Hongsan in China, and Peak XV in India and Southeast Asia, quote, no later, unquote, than March 2024. Okay, the machinations of the venture capital industry, I can't. Kanishka Singh, Reuters. Microsoft agrees to pay $20 million to settle FTC charges that the company violated COPPA by collecting personal data from children without their parents' consent. Meta got a similar fine last week. What is up with the law that's supposed to protect the privacy of children when it's found to be violated? The amounts that the violators are fined are utterly inconsequential to those businesses. I don't do better. Tom Wilson, Reuters. Nansen. Investors pulled almost $780 million from Binance and $13 million from its U.S. affiliate in the past 24 hours, following the SEC's lawsuit. Related, Yuquei Yang, Bloomberg. In its Binance lawsuit, the SEC cited 12 coins as assets falling under its purview, taking the value of tokens categorized as unregistered securities to over $115 billion. Also related, New York Times, the SEC sues Binance and CEO Changpeng Zhao, accusing the company of mishandling billions in customer funds, lying to regulators and investors, and more. Okay, so I suppose the Coinbase thing makes a little more sense. Today is the day that the SEC woke up and chose violence. That's a drastic oversimplification. Obviously, they didn't wake up and decide to do it today. They've been planning it. But today is the day that they sort of put their cards on the table and say, we're coming for all of you because we don't think you're operating businesses that are above board. Again, the question will be, are they really not operating businesses that are above board? Or is it that the SEC doesn't like the idea of businesses which would facilitate value being transferred amongst private citizens and individuals without the banking rails that are already well captured by the state authority? We shall see. Benj Edwards, Ars Technica. Apple avoided mentioning AI at WWDC, instead referring to machine learning and transformers while describing features. The M2 Ultra was touted for training models. This was certainly stood out. Hard to not stand out given that AI is the loudest story in the tech industry at this moment. Again, kudos to Apple's expertise in this area, that not only did they avoid leaning into the buzzword and instead talked about the underlying technologies, but they focused on, for my money, applications of those technologies which matter, such as our new ultra high-end SoC is exceptional at doing the work of building large language models, or we're using the same underlying technologies to do things like make autocorrect better, because rather than asking a piece of software to produce words for you, we'd rather use similar underlying technology to make it easier for you to choose your words. That's the sort of human-centered characteristic of Apple products that continues to hold me as a customer. Michael Grodhaus, Fast Company. An interview with Craig Federighi on the new privacy and safety enhancements across iOS 17, iPadOS 17, watchOS 10, and macOS Sonoma, as well as working with AI and more. Related, Zach Hall, 9 to 5 Mac. Apple unveils iOS 17 with redesigned contact cards, live voicemail, transcription, FaceTime messages, updates to messages, autocorrect, AirDrop, and more. Also related, Hartley, Charlton, Mac rumors. Apple says iOS 17 will offer a landscape standby mode for the lock screen, name drop contact sharing, Siri as a trigger word instead of Hey Siri, and more. Also related, Amanda Sieberling, TechCrunch. Apple says iOS 17 will include a sensitive content warning feature, which processes content on device to help adult users avoid unwanted nude images and videos. These collection of features that are coming and that were shown off, I just love this dump truck that's idling across the street. What's compelling to me about them is that the majority of what was shown off and what's talked about here are they all sort of fit into this bucket of how do we facilitate maximal authentic human connection between yourself and the people in your life. Contact cards, or contact posters, I think is the marketing term, is a way for you to choose how you appear, what your presentation is when you call someone else. What shows up on the lock screen of an iPhone when you call, that to some degree should be up to you. It's you presenting yourself. So the fact that that's baked in, the fact that this idea of who you are as represented by your contact card in someone's address book is A, kind of your preference to express, and B, that you should have flexibility in how you do that. The additional set of features, being able to leave FaceTime videos as voicemail, being able to screen a call, you get a call, you can't answer it at that moment in time. As someone starts to record a message, you can read the transcript of that message in real time. And then, enhancements to messages so that you can keep track of, replying to a particular message in a group thread, or seeing someone who has shared their location with you, seeing that map in line. All of these little things that are all there in addition to the content warning, right? Like someone sends you content which may be sexually explicit, it may just be a naked human body, it may be something else, providing the means for there to be an interstitial, right, a sort of frosted pane of glass over that piece of media that says, the machine in your hand thinks that this might be inappropriate for general audiences. Are you sure you want to look at it right now? All of these things, again, bundle up into how does the device support the human being and the relationships that exist between human beings. That, to me, is, again, an area where they continue to define the state of the art because they care about, doesn't sound like too much for a guy wearing Steve Jobs t-shirt. It's humane in a way that not a lot of other technology companies put the effort in. Catherine Hill, Financial Times. At TSMC's annual meeting, geopolitics took center stage for the first time, as CEO Mark Liu defended the U.S. expansion, saying the plans were, quote, not all downside, unquote. Yeah, I would imagine that geopolitics is going to take center stage in every major dialogue in any business that produces chips or semiconductors or flash memory or any of the other fundamental components of the modern ecology of technology products that we all live amongst. Aside from that, though, no. Sarah McBride, Bloomberg. Enterprise software startup Instabase raised $45 million, led by Tribe Capital at a $2 billion valuation, after raising $105 million at a $1.05 billion valuation in October 2019. There's still plenty of room to grow in SaaS software. Don't let anyone tell you different. I think it was Benedict Evans in conversation with Tony Cowan Brown at some point in the last couple of weeks. There are still major parts of the software landscape at a global scale that are running on, God, I think what Benedict said was DEC equipment. If you don't know what DEC is, go learn. Sharon Harding, Ars Technica. Counterfeit tech scams run amok on Walmart and eBay because the platforms, despite their resources, have failed to properly vet sellers and products. That doesn't surprise me. A little surprising, Walmart. I'm not familiar with Walmart's ability to empower me as an individual to resell some secondhand piece of technology, whereas that's exactly what eBay is for. And so maybe it's unfair, but for my money, you sort of expect when you go to do business on eBay that there's some non-zero percentage of fuckery afoot, whereas Walmart, interesting Freudian slip there. Walmart is a business that, in theory, only offers things from vendors which it has vetted. Although, to reference the Freudian slip, I don't know anybody that doesn't have a story about how they bought something from Amazon from a vendor who turned out to be selling a less than what was advertised, shall we say. So maybe it's not that unique. That said, if you're in the market for any piece of secondhand technology, Swappa. I've used Swappa for years. It is a two-sided marketplace. It is an eBay or a Craigslist for a specific set of products where they enforce a particular set of rules such that the odds of being the victim of a scam are much lower. Associated Press, FIFA report. Over 50% of soccer players in two 2021 tournaments received abuse on social media, a third of which was racist. Some players and clubs demand change. We are the content moderators. The notion that as a professional athlete, you are a target for abuse is nothing new, sadly. That said, the tools that we refer to as social media that exist certainly make it easier and what's another important aspect of the change? Significantly greater in scope and scale than ever before. If you are, Cristiano Ronaldo, you're on Instagram and you're on Twitter and you're interacting with your fans. The problem there is you're also subjected to interacting with people who are very much not your fans. And that's gross, and it is unkind and inhumane. And I'm not sure that there's much hope for asking technology and software to do the job of preventing the hateful interactions from reaching the end user. Maybe our recent discoveries and innovations in AI will prove me wrong, right? Maybe there is a version of Twitter or Instagram or any other tool which does effectively filter that content. But at a bedrock level, I continue to believe that the thing we're all going to have to learn is don't say things that are hurtful to people you dislike. Say things that are constructive, but, Ted Lasso is, I'm almost finished with it. My house is almost finished with it. We're a couple episodes behind. And I'm reminded of the character from the first season, a guy who just lives in Richmond who perpetually refers to Ted as a wanker. That cultural norm is going to have to wither and die in order for us to move the ball forward. I'm not saying it's one or the other. We're going to have better tools for filtering truly grotesque expressions from human beings, but we're also going to have to learn as a people that it's not okay to treat your fellow human being who is apparently trying their best to be earnest in whatever arena they're participating in, whether it's professional soccer or, teaching the fifth grade, that language matters. And it's up to you as the individual who's going to open your mouth to remember that and to act accordingly. Philippe Esposito, 9 to 5 Mac. Apple unveils an M2 Max with a 12-core CPU, 30-core GPU, and support for 96 gigabytes of RAM, and an M2 Ultra with a 24-core CPU, a 60-core GPU, and support for 192 gigabytes of RAM. Also related, Apple updates the Mac Studio starting at $1,999 and the Mac Pro starting at $6,999 with M2 Max and M2 Ultra, completing the Mac's transition to Apple Silicon. Also related, Monica Chin, The Verge. Apple announces a 15.3-inch MacBook Air for $1,299 and up with an M2, 6 speakers, a 25% brighter display, a headphone jack, and a 1080p webcam, shipping on June 13. The Mac hardware announcements from yesterday were pleasant surprises. The idea that the Mac Pro is a done deal is wonderful for the edge case users who need a Mac Pro. The idea that you can get effectively the same native compute power, but without the PCI expansion for significantly less money in a significantly smaller form factor does, I think, put a nice bow on Apple's point of view, which led to what I think anybody who's been paying attention to the company for the last handful of years would agree was the moment in time when they thought, we don't need to build towers anymore. We can just build other computers that are hyper powerful and not build towers. And the community flipped out and said, no, we need towers. We promise we need towers. Like, okay, if you really want a tower, welcome to a $7,000 purchase. If what you need, though, is a hyper-powerful Mac, you can have that for a fraction of the money and a fraction of the physical size. It's the size of a can of paint as opposed to the size of like a dorm room refrigerator. So I'm glad it's over with. I really want a Mac Studio. It's my irrational purchasing desire. And the fact that there's a bigger MacBook Air, that thing is going to sell like a fiend because of the Nilay Patel maxim, the average human being just wants cheap, large displays. So, again, kudos, Cupertino, way to knock it out of the park. I'm looking forward to watching the State of the Union this evening.